What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Giants. I'm your host, Anthony Rovardo, joined by my co-host, Alex Wilson. And the New York Giants revamped their receiving core this offseason, and they have a few players who seem primed for breakout campaigns in the upcoming 2023 regular season. The Giants, a young team with a lot of young wide receiving talent, and some guys here who, again, could really step up this upcoming season, make a name for themselves. So we want to go ahead and discuss three of those players in the Giants receiving core that we think are primed for a breakout campaign this year, and go ahead give you the pros and cons of these players, strengths and weaknesses, and why we think they are ready for a breakout. But before we dive into all that, make sure to leave a like if you do enjoy this episode, subscribe to the channel if you are new, ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, and comment your thoughts on the topic down below in the comment section. And if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review. But without further ado, Alex, how are you doing today, my friend? And what are your thoughts on the New York Giants breakout campaign candidates for this upcoming season at the wide receiver position?
I'm doing great, my friends. I'm on my honeymoon right now. If you haven't noticed, my background's changing pretty much on every day at this point. But, talking about the Giants does not stop at Fireside Giants. You can definitely assure that we are committed to the job, making sure you guys are up to date on this team. We want to talk about three receivers today that have breakout potential. And I think that the first one I want to discuss is Paris Campbell. And why I think Paris Campbell has breakout potential here is there's two reasons, right? The first one is the contract. The Giants built it with heavy incentives. To hit his incentives, he mostly has to have a career season in yards, career season in touchdowns. Obviously, he gets some money for games played and other smaller things that, obviously kind of play back into his contract. But I love how they really asked him, go out there and kick ass and you'll be rewarded for it financially. So I think that he has something to work for and work toward. And he's coming off his first healthy season with the Indianapolis Colts. Now, guys, he had a career year in 2022 at 25 years old, 623 yards and 3 touchdowns. Both of those were career highs, and he had a 69.2% catch rate, which is more than respectable. So I'll tell you this right now with Paris Campbell, elite speed. We spoke to Bobby Okereke. He said the first thing that stands out about him, it's legit 4.3 speed. He is fast as hell. So, Richie James, which was a pretty big factor and valuable for us on the offense in 2022. Obviously, he's gone now, but Paris Campbell, I think, could be the exact kind of replace his role in the slot and be a very dependable option for Daniel Jones. But he has so much more speed to his game. He can also exercise those go routes up the seams, and he can, kind of use those wheel concepts along the sideline from that slot position. There's a lot he can do, and I really do think that Paris Campbell could end up becoming a really, really nice player for this Giants team. It's a 1-year deal, obviously. Maybe he sticks around long term if he has a big year. And I think the Giants are going to be feeding him quite a lot because right now, Wandel Robinson's obviously injured still. We're going to talk about him in a little bit. Sterling Shepard, who really knows what we're going to get from him at his age, coming off another significant injury. Jalen Hyatt, maybe they'll be using him inside and out. I think Paris Campbell is going to be our primary slot guy. So with that being said, I see him as a potential breakout candidate, one of the more likely ones on this Giants team because of the speed, because he has a lot to work for. And he's only 25, 26 years old, so he's super, super young, coming off his first fully healthy season. And he was in a really bad passing attack with the Colts last year, so I think his potential. I think that in a good year, I think he could hit over 800 yards and 5 touchdowns. I would be super, super happy with that. I'd even consider bringing him back if he was able to put those numbers together. But Anthony, looking at Paris Campbell, do you agree with me? And if you do, what are you thinking about him?
Yeah, of course I agree with you. Now, I think you could argue Paris Campbell already had his breakout year. This past season with the Indianapolis Colts, he stayed healthy for a full 17 games, put up 63 receptions for 623 yards and 3 touchdowns. But I actually agree with you. I think there's more room to grow here for Paris Campbell. And I think that entering this New York Giants offense, yes, there's a lot of mouths to feed, but that's going to create opportunities, one-on-one matchups for a guy like Paris Campbell, where he can really make a name for himself with Big Blue. And what I really like about Campbell, you mentioned a lot how he's going to work out of the slot, be that slot option for the Giants offense. I think that what's most valuable about him is his ability to move inside and outside. He played a lot on the outside for the Indianapolis Colts. You think back to Week 17, Giants versus Colts. Of course, the Giants win that game, clinch a postseason berth. But in that game, Paris Campbell had a deep reception, contested grab from the outside where he pretty much mossed one of the New York Giants cornerbacks. He's strong, he's physical. Darius Slayton mentioned that recently in an interview with Pat Leonard of the Daily News. He said that Paris Campbell, yes, he's really fast, but he's also really well built. He's not one of those 5'10", 180-pound guys. Darius Slayton said that this is at least a 205-pound, fully jacked up wide receiver who has strength and ability to make plays after the catch. So That's what I'm most excited about with Paris Campbell, because I think you look at a lot of these Giants wide receivers on the back end of the roster, some of these guys who are competing with Paris Campbell for that slot spot, and a lot of them, yeah, good route runners, but they don't have that physical presence. Paris Campbell, as Darius Slayton described it, has that Deebo Samuel build to him. That's what Darius Slayton said about Campbell, because again, not only a skinny slot wide receiver, but a really well-built player who can be physical at the catch point and also be physical with the ball in his hand. So I like Paris Campbell if he stays healthy. And again, health is the big variable with him. But if he does stay healthy this season, I think he's in store for a big year. Again, not just because he can be the main slot option, but because once Wandel Robinson is back in the lineup and playing out of the slot, they can move Paris Campbell around the offense and have him play on the outside. And again, use the physicality that he has to make some big time plays for the Giants offense. So that's a player that I am really, really excited about. But I think it's a good way to transition and segue into a discussion about Wandel Robinson, Alex, because I know you think he's a breakout candidate, but you also have some hesitancy surrounding Wandel Robinson, which is fair. Coming off of an injury, going into his second season, one of those smaller guys, not a physical presence necessarily like a Paris Campbell, but the way that I look at Wandel Robinson personally, I think he has all the potential in the world, and the reason that I have so much confidence in him is because I know that Brian Dable and Joe Shane had confidence in him. He wasn't supposed to be a second-round draft pick, had a fourth-round projection. Giants drafted him in round 2, wanted to make sure that no one else was able to grab him, and they looked at him as being the perfect Kadarius Toney replacement. This guy who, once the ball's in his hands, watch out. He can score from anywhere on the field. He can make plays at all 3 levels of the defense. That's what Wandel Robinson is hopefully going to bring to this Giants offense. We got just a glimmer, just a glimpse of what he could provide to this team with that big standout performance against the Detroit Lions last season, over 100 receiving yards, or I think 100 receiving yards flat in the first half, then suffers the season-ending injury in the second half. Can't get worse than that. Right as he was breaking out, he suffers the injury. But now I think, fully healthy this upcoming year, he could just do it all over again, have that breakout year in his sophomore season, and I think that the ceiling is really, really high for a guy like Wandel Robinson. But Alex, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on the second-year receiver.
I mean, you guys know I love Wandale, and if not for the injury, I think he would have been probably one of our most potent and productive receivers in 2022. I mean, look at his numbers. Obviously, they're marred by the injury. He only played, 6 games? 5? Yeah, 6 games. And some of them weren't even full ones. That Detroit game really put him on the map for me, though. 9 receptions on 13 targets. He was freaking catching everything, and he obviously goes out and has over 100 yards on the dot. He only had 1 touchdown as a rookie, but look, Wandale Robinson is going to get better because the Giants are going to have so many other options to feed and so many mouths to feed. And look, Saquon Barkley, his touches are going to reduce. If he stays with the Giants and signs the franchise tag, or maybe they extend him, his touches are going to reduce. And that is a really good thing, because it doesn't mean it means we don't have to rely on him as our primary focal point on offense anymore. We can spread the love. We can give it to Darren Waller. We can give it to Hodgins. We can give it to Paris Campbell and Wandale Robinson and Darius Slayton and Jalen Hyatt. Look at all the names and all the talent we have on this roster. You don't have to force feed Saquon Barkley until he gets hurt, which is what the Giants have been doing for years. So I actually love the idea of taking Saquon's reps and giving them to other people, because that will keep him healthier, given he stays on this team, and it will keep any running back healthier that plays for the Giants in the foreseeable future. So looking at Wandale Robinson, think about what Wandale Robinson's game really is. He's not a speedster that gets downfield all the time. He's a short yardage to intermediate yardage guy who's going to run those little hooks. He's going to run those drag routes, those crossing concepts from the slot. He's going to get into the flat and pick up those first downs. And when you're in man coverage, when you have so much talent across the board on the wide receiver position, maybe we don't have a wide receiver 1, but look at all the speed and agility we have there. You possibly can't pick up everybody. If you're a defensive back and you're playing a zone coverage, you have to. Someone enters your zone and there's guys crossing all over the field. You're going to get confused. You're going to have to pass guys off, and once you're having to pass guys off, that's when you're going to get confused, because everybody else is trying to figure out where the hell everyone's going, and that speed is dangerous, right? One mistake, if that protection holds up, and that's kind of why Evan Neal is going to become such an important catalyst for this offense this upcoming year. If that protection holds up and Daniel Jones has even an extra second in the pocket, you're going to see a lot of guys get open a lot more. You're going to see a lot of bigger chances. You're going to see a lot of bigger opportunities for Daniel Jones to sling the rock around the field. And Wandale Robinson is one of those guys that's going to be sitting there with nobody within 5 yards around him, because they're going to be looking everywhere else, right? He's so small. He's so shifty. He kind of hides in coverage. And I think that's what makes him stand out to me the most. He can get those that like those short yardage concepts, and he can take those the 5-10 extra yards downfield, pick up those first downs, do the dirty work for you, and let Paris Campbell, Jalen Hyatt, and obviously Darius Slayton get the hell downfield and open up the defense and blow the top off of them. And I think that Wandel is going to benefit extremely from that. And obviously his yards after the catch qualities are some of the best on the team. Now, my biggest reservation about Wandel Robinson is that he's coming off an ACL injury, so who knows how he's really going to be. We've seen players take a couple of weeks to kind of find their footing again, if not a whole year, a whole season to find their footing. You look at Cooper Kupp, the year removed from the ACL injury, has an MVP caliber season. Sometimes it takes an extra year to commit to that knee again, to get over the mental hurdles, to feel confident in it. You see it with some of those players like OBJ, obviously. He kind of stepped in and actually performed pretty well following it, just, having gone through injuries in the past. I think he was kind of used to that mental component. But Wandel, he's traditionally been healthy his entire collegiate career, and then obviously gets hurt in the first year of his NFL career. And I think that maybe that will pose some, mental hurdles for him to overcome. But I think that he has the fortitude to do it. And I think that he will, second half of the year rolls around, I think he'll be a big impact player. Do I think I would label him as a breakout player? Maybe for the second half of the season, but obviously he won't be available for the full year. But I do think he can make a significant impact for us down the stretch and hopefully during the playoffs.
Yeah, Robinson said that he thinks he's going to be ready for week 1, but I think that even still, if he's on the field in week 1, he's probably not going to be at 100% and ready to be a focal point in the offense regardless. But I agree with you where I think he's a player who works his way onto the field in the beginning portion of the season, but towards the second half of the year, that's when he really gets fully ingrained into the offense and has the opportunity to break out as a full-time starter over the course of the second half of the season. So that's kind of what I envision for Robinson. Again, gadget player, can do all sorts of things in your offense, and really just a run after the catch guy, which is something that the Giants really need. Plus, I think an underrated aspect of Wandel Robinson's game, his ability to score in the red zone. He scored 1 touchdown last season. It was in the red zone, and it was on one of those plays where you just throw this, shifty slot guy out in motion, flip it over to him in the flat, let him turn upfield and score. We've seen that time and time again with the likes of the Kansas City Chiefs. Kadarius Toney obviously scoring a touchdown in the Super Bowl on a play similar to the one that Wandel Robinson scored on, and that play has become a focal point in many NFL offenses. Once you're down in the red zone, you just flip it out to that guy in the flat in motion, let him turn upfield and score. Wandel Robinson is going to be able to do that at a very frequent basis, and I think he's going to be pretty lethal once the Giants get in scoring range. But someone else that was really lethal for the Giants in scoring range last season was Isaiah Hodgins. He scored a lot of red zone touchdowns, and he's been continuing to do so at OTAs. He's apparently scoring a bunch of touchdowns from the red zone during the OTAs over the past 3 weeks, and now as the Giants move into mandatory minicamp, all eyes are on Isaiah Hodgins, who, in my opinion, the Giants' most underrated player and probably the player most primed for a breakout this upcoming year. Again, similar to Paris Campbell, you could argue Hodgins had his breakout campaign in 2022, kind of burst onto the scene for the New York Giants, quickly became Daniel Jones' favorite target and hauled in a bunch of red zone touchdown grabs like we mentioned. But when you look at what he did last year and how he has the potential to do so much more this upcoming season, that's when you get really excited about Isaiah Hodgins. So when you look at the fact that he joined that team midway through the year, made such an impact in half of the amount of time that most players would have with their team. Now you look at Hodgins going into this offseason. He's practicing with the team. That's something that he didn't get to do last year because he was stuck on the Buffalo Bills practice squad. But this year, he's ingrained as a starter in the offense, and he's making an impact at practice. He gets all this extra time to learn the playbook, to gel with Daniel Jones, to gel with the other receivers. Everyone gets their timing down and gets the playbook fully memorized. Hodgins has a chance here to have way more preparation for the upcoming season, preparing as a starter now. No longer preparing as a practice squad player. He's preparing as a starter, and I think that makes a big difference. So when you look at the talent that Hodgins possesses, 6'3" frame, ability to make contested catches, to get open on those deep crossers that he was really making a killing on during the 2022 season, again, I think there's a really big opportunity here when you look at the chemistry that he has with Daniel Jones. He will be a full-time starter in the Giants offense this upcoming season, and I think that he might end up being their number one receiver on the year. So big breakout season in store for Isaiah Hodgins in my eyes. I think that if he stays fully healthy throughout the year, and there's nothing that would suggest that he wouldn't, he's always been healthy throughout his career, I think that Hodgins really could establish himself as the New York Giants, a WR1, maybe take that spotlight away from Darius Slayton this upcoming season. But Alex, when you're looking at Hodgins, red zone scoring is a plus, extra time to gel and gain chemistry with Daniel Jones this offseason, another big plus. But what else do you see from Isaiah Hodgins that makes him stand out as a breakout candidate?
I mean, look, what stood out to Isaiah Hodgins immediately for me was the chemistry he developed with Daniel Jones almost instantaneously. You know what I mean? He walked in on day one and looked like he'd been with this team for 5 years. He looked like he had been working with Daniel Jones for years. And like, you know how difficult it is to walk in from a practice squad of another team, know your playbook. And the good thing was he knows Brian Dable's playbook. So obviously walks into a pretty good situation where like he understood the concepts already and he just needed to develop chemistry with Daniel Jones. And that's what kind of stood out to me is like, wow, like this receiver's pretty good for us. He's a good player. He's going to be really good for us for a long time because he instantly was able to step in and make an impact. And that's really hard to do. You know what I mean? That's not an easy task. So we saw him develop week in and week out, and not just as surefire pass catcher, but as a red zone threat, as you kind of referenced some of these variables here. I think that there's a lot of untapped potential with Isaiah Hodgins. Does he have elite speed? No. He has a great frame. I think he could be a little bit more physical at the point of attack, but we've seen him make some unbelievable catches. The dude has freaking glue on his hands. I don't think he was hit with a single drop, across a pretty nice sample size for the Giants last year. So that kind of shows you everything that went his way, he caught. I think that ultimately, when you're looking at where he's going to kind of dominate this year, he's not going to be this big, like, 20 plus yards downfield type of guy. He can make the catches, especially in man coverage. I think he can do a really good job there. But I just see him as that guy that kind of on those kind of shorter to intermediate crossing patterns. I do think that he can be a really nice player for this Giants team. He can be kind of a possession guy. He also is a fighter. Like he just gets, like when he gets the ball in his hands, he will do whatever it takes to get into the end zone. Like that's kind of what I noticed from him. He also gets open. He runs those secondary routes. How many times in the past did we see Giants receivers just not run those secondary routes? Daniel Jones escapes from the pocket and everyone's standing within 5 feet of each other, not even trying to get open. How many times have we seen that, guys? I know you know exactly what I'm talking about. Last year, Isaiah Hodgins, the reason he got so many touchdowns in the red zone, a lot of those were off of broken plays. Daniel Jones running around, Isaiah Hodgins getting open, finding ways to, open up a little window for Daniel Jones to throw into. That's just pure chemistry. That's realizing my quarterback needs help. He's on the run. There's guys chasing his ass. I need to get into a spot where I can make a play, whether it's right on the boundary, whether it's in the corner of the end zone, or whether it's finding a gap in between defenders. Isaiah Hodgins, what makes him such a great player? He's a really smart guy. He's a really high football IQ. And I think that kind of supplements some of what he lacks as an athlete. I think he's an average athlete. He has good size and frame. He's not the fastest guy. He's not the most agile guy. He just knows where to be at the right time. He knows he's very, very good with his vision. He's very, very good at realizing when his quarterback needs help, he's in trouble, gets open. And his hands, tremendous hands, really allow him to exercise and capitalize on a lot of that high football IQ stuff he manages to do. So love him for that. I think that's going to continue to develop, especially with chemistry. He's going to get better with Daniel Jones. He's going to get better at knowing what his tendencies are, where to be in the right moments, and that's ultimately going to help the offense boost their chances of scoring touchdowns and whatnot. And they ranked top 5 in the NFL last year in red zone conversion. So hopefully the next step in the equation, getting to the red zone more often, where Isaiah Hodgins can help punch the football in.
Yep, he definitely helps do that, and I think that another thing you kind of hinted at there, or really touched on, Hodgins and his ability to find those open spaces between defenders. I think his spatial awareness is best of any of the New York Giants wide receivers that they had on the roster last season. I think just his ability to find that open pocket, sit down in the zone, and get himself open and wait for Daniel Jones to deliver the strike. That was really how Isaiah Hodgins racked up the majority of his yardage last year. It wasn't too frequently that we saw him run a single move, just a quick slant and catch the ball. We would often see him kind of just walk around behind the defense and wait for Daniel Jones to lock eyes with him and then attack the open spot in the zone and make the big reception, whether that be on those deep crossers downfield or in the red zone, just running those spot routes, sitting down right in the crevice of the zones and scoring the touchdown reception. So Hodgins, again, a player that I'm really excited about. You might argue that he already had his breakout, but I think that there's so much more in store for this player as he enters his second season, his first full-time season with the New York Giants, and I just can't wait to watch this offense take the field. Preseason is really right around the corner. We are so close to actually seeing some New York Giants football. Training camp starting next month, mandatory mini camp starting at the beginning of next week. Exciting times here in the NFL offseason, and of course, we're going to continue to update you on everything New York Giants right here on Fireside Giants. So make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this episode. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Ring the bell so you don't miss an episode, and comment your thoughts on the topic down below in the comment section. And if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review. But without further ado, we will catch you all in the next one. Have a good one, and let's go Giants.